We thought we were enjoying a peace dividend, but in reality, we were just running a security deficit. The time of illusions is over now. Europe is called to take greater charge of its own defense, not in some distant future, but already today, not with incremental steps, but with the courage that the situation requires. We need a surge in European defense, and we need it now. We need it first and foremost because of the situation in Ukraine. There is the urgent need to fill the gaps in Ukraine's military supplies and to provide Ukraine with solid security guarantees. But this moment of reckoning isn't only about Ukraine. It is about all of Europe and our entire continent's security. Putin has proven time and again that he is a hostile neighbor. He cannot be trusted. He can only be deterred.
We must continue to help the Ukrainians resist until they can negotiate with Russia a solid peace for themselves and for us all. That's why the road to peace can't involve abandoning Ukraine. Quite the contrary. Peace cannot be achieved at any price and under the Russian dictator. Peace cannot be Ukraine's capitulation. It cannot be its collapse, nor can it mean a fragile ceasefire. Today we can no longer take Russia at its word. Ukraine has a right to peace and security for itself, and it's in our interest. In the interest of the security of the European continent. That's why we're working with our British and German friends and several other European countries. This will undoubtedly involve long-term support for the Ukrainian army. It may also involve the deployment of European forces. As early as next week, we will be bringing together the chiefs of staff of those countries who wish to assume their responsibilities. And I want to believe that the United States will stand by us. Germany, Poland, Denmark, the Baltic states and many of our partners have announced unprecedented efforts in terms of military spending. So in this time of action, which is finally beginning, France has a special status. We have the most efficient army in Europe. And thanks to the choices made by our elders after the Second World War, we have nuclear deterrent capabilities. These protect us far more than many of our neighbors. My dear compatriots, in the face of these challenges and irreversible changes, we must not give in to any excess, neither the excesses of the warmongers nor the excesses of the defeatists. France will follow only one course, that of the will for peace and freedom, true to its history and its principle.
Russia's defeat is not a bad thing because then, there could be really a change in the society, and there are many different nations right now part of Russia as well. I think if you would have more like small nations, it's not a bad thing if the big power is actually much smaller. So
wir müssen dafür sorgen, dass wir unser Friedenshaus Europa verteidigen. Deswegen haben wir eine Ostflanke der NATO verschärft und deswegen haben wir dieses Sanktionspaket hier heute gemeinsam auf den Weg gebracht. Und nochmal, wir werden das russische Regime international isolieren. Das ist ein Riesenpaket, was wir auf den Weg bringen.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. For some reason, I think this is a very, very special day. Out of the Matrix into Prime Reality. That's our mantra. Thank you for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube in the live chat. We have our wonderful moderator, Ronnie. Thank you so much. My wonderful wife, Christine, who is the wise thumbs in the live chat. The number one rule of negotiations, if you really want to sell what you want to sell, is you got to keep coming back with offers until you offer them something that they cannot resist. And once you offer them something they cannot resist, they consent. When they consent, you have your deal. This is what is being done to us every single day. We are being bombarded, and the entire population, with information, with campaigns, social media, you name it, until we're triggered and until we give our consent to something. And this, by the way, isn't just for the quote unquote normies, it's for all of us. So I want to start this with a warning. Whatever happens next.
Sound is glitching.
Apologies on our end if the sound is glitching. Is this for everyone's? Everything seems clear on our end here. I want to say a warning. Whatever happens next, do not consent. And here we have to today's entire show is about this one sentence, do not consent, and what it means. Now, what I'm presenting here is not entirely new knowledge whatsoever, but we underestimate how deep this goes. These forces that are either calling for war in Europe, and they're calling for war in Europe, they have been pre-paving the way. They have been systematically sabotaging peace talks. They have been systematically spreading disinformation all over the place. And to them, it is simply a play on a stage, a game, a movie that they're playing out for a higher goal. To the people, it is the difference between life or death, suffering, or living comparatively comfortably in peace. So this is a big thing, but it's not just that. It is the next pandemic. It is the climate or weather deal. It is the looming technocracy and transhumanism on the horizon. These are all things that they need us to consent to every single step. And that is something people don't understand. When people say they can just force this on us, no. Literally, they cannot, and they know they cannot. We have to actually agree to it. And I want to go through the principles with you today, because whatever you believe politically, spiritually, it doesn't really matter. Nothing can happen without your consent. Those who in the dark arena, if you will, those who have forgotten about this principle or who ignore it, their agenda cannot go forward. Their energy, if you will, cannot expand. So those who actually use force without consent, violence without consent, anything without consent, their path cannot go forward. It's the truth. Now let's look at this together here. Since most people would never willingly consent to their own oppression, malevolent forces, whether you call them Luciferian, archons, parasites, controllers, it's all the same. They use deception and manipulation to manufacture consent. Black magic in the context of occult practices, psychological manipulation, and mass influence is used to trick, coerce, or extract consent from individuals or entire populations. It operates on energetic, subconscious, and legal levels, often through symbols, rituals, contracts, and psychological tricks. This cannot be underestimated. This actually begins right after your birth. The biggest one is how you enter their system of operations. You were born within this construct as a living, breathing being of flesh and bones. Yes, your spirit is just inhabiting this avatar, but that's what you are here. Unbeknownst to about 99% of the people, what happens next is that the government literally, or the system, if you will, makes an offer to your parents. Now, they don't really make it seem like an offer, but it is an offer. And that is the birth certificate. It's a certificate of you going through the birth canal. It's like a ship, right? And when they accept that birth certificate and they accept the identity that was created, what does that mean, identity? It means something that has, you can only have an identity if it identifies with something else. So now you have you, the living being, and you have the legal fiction, the identity. When those two merge through consent of your parents, you as a living being now have an adapter, the legal name, the legal fiction, which is only a legal entity. It's not real. Whatever name is on that birth certificate is a legal entity now that gets on your, connected to your social security number and your IDs. All of these are just fictions. But that is how the living being literally gives up their life, their choice, their freedom, and enters the system through this adapter, this fiction. Now that's how it works. It is literally black magic, right? So this is the first one that happens. Consent must be given, but it doesn't have to be informed consent, especially not in context. So we can have, and this, we're going to get into this a little deeper. You could be given information about something through an entirely different avenue that seems unconnected to what you're doing right now, but to the system, these forces, you are consenting. This means that as long as people do not resist, remain unaware, or comply out of fear, they are considered to have consented. Black magicians, secret societies, and power elites believe that if people fail to reject the deception, they're agreeing to it by default. The former president of the EU Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said this in 1999 in an interview with a German magazine. He said, "We make a decision, and then we sort of kick it out there to the people. And if no one resists, if there's no outcry because the people don't understand what has been decided, we start implementing it until there is no return." This is how these people operate. So most people that have seen satanic rituals, or that have seen sort of heard about secret societies or occult societies, they don't quite comprehend the magnitude and why they exist. They exist so that a portion of actually important knowledge that we should all have in its entirety is only passed down to initiated people, so they know how to operate and use these tactics on you, and they find new ways to do it so they can get your consent. We have an entirely new world, in the last 25 plus years, the digital world, which is entirely new avenues to get consent. Events like Super Bowl halftime shows, Olympic ceremonies, and political inaugurations often include esoteric symbols, choreography, and archetypal storytelling that mimic occult rituals. So that's why I always say, when you watch the Super Bowl, when you watch the Olympics, when you watch presidential inaugurations or big time speeches, or today pretty much any pop concert, or rock or metal or whatever, these are all rituals. It has nothing to do with sports or entertainment. Do you think that the people, the forces behind it, have any interest in sports or competitions or entertainment? That is the avenue that they used, and they have used it in the past. They've used it always. Stage plays and coliseums, and the gladiator shows, which is the sort of the ancient way of sports, if you will, and all that they have used not as entertainment, not to bring joy or bring fun to the masses, but to allow them to enter the tainment. That's what's going on here. The people enter their minds, and their minds are being tamed and manipulated in a certain direction. Today, you see it very openly, right? Most of these award shows and these things are openly satanic. They don't hide that anymore. It's not subtle. It's out there, right? Completely. But what you don't see is the subtle messaging in the commercials. What you don't see is how the entire design of arenas and how these rituals unfold in one aspect after the other, the timing of it, how they actually are aimed at getting your attention and getting your implied consent. People who watch, accept, or engage emotionally in these rituals unknowingly vote for that reality to manifest. This is so important. This is, if you've been to those Super Bowl parties or award show watch parties, if a friend does it in your neighborhood, what usually happens is People don't even watch consciously. That the things on the big screen TV, the volume is up, people are gathered around the kitchen, they have conversations, they drink other recreational drugs, they eat bad foods. And so what is happening, this is the best thing that can happen, is that 80% of the content just seeps into your subconscious. You see it, sort of in the periphery, you hear it on the periphery, your subconscious absorbs it. The big things, the big cheering moments, everybody has attention to, claps, cheers, gives consent. The entire world is the stage. And if you're watching unconsciously, you are most likely agreeing to the stage and what it wants to do. Black magicians believe words have energy. So do we, by the way. By manipulating language to extract consent without people realizing it. Like I said, birth certificates, legal documents, and banking agreements often contain hidden meanings and double interpretations. Think about it. Words like submit. When you submit an application and understand, which legally means to stand under authority or a jurisdiction, it tricks people into accepting positions of subjugation. We submit. There's nothing, go into a courtroom, and if you don't waive, that you're being read your charges, then the judge is going to read you the charges, right? These are all interesting words that are used in maritime law, by the way. But the judge reads the charges, and then he ends the reading by asking you, do you understand? What most people think that means is, am I mentally capable of comprehending what that judge just said? No. That's not what was happening there. The question was, do you stand under my authority? So when people say yes, they consent to the legal contract of now being at the mercy of this authority. That's what's legally happening. Whether people want to believe that or not does not matter one bit. That's exactly what's happening. Even signing government forms agreeing to terms of service or not objecting in court can be considered implied consent under occult law or the statutory legal system. Clicking I agree on terms of service for social media, banking, and AI platforms legally gives away rights, data, and even digital identity ownership, which is our third identity now, right? So we have our authentic being. You were born as, Michelle of the family Johnson or whatever. The legal fiction, this is actually, I want to say, one is your authenticity. The other is your identity, which is the name, usually in all caps, on documents provided by the system. That's the first fiction. The second fiction is now the digital twin identity, right? Which is sort of becoming a holographic identity in the digital realm. This follows the occult rule that if it is written and you accept it, you're bound by it. The entire concept of language and written language, written letters, was actually consciously invented not only to confuse people, but to lower them into this form of communication that is severely limited and controlled by predetermined meanings of words. I mean, this sounds very complicated, but language and written language were invented to bring us down from telepathic image to image, mind to mind communication, which is much clearer. Actually, when it is pure, it leaves no room for interpretation. However, language and written language is very, very limited. And we have the problem that we're bound by predetermined definitions for words, right? A word means something. And we have to use that word to explain a principle, or have just a few short number of words to explain a principle. And those words are energetically charged, but they weren't charged by us. They were charged by the designers of the language. Now, that doesn't mean we cannot transmute that energetic charge, or that we cannot, and we get to the solutions, of course. It only means that we first have to become aware of this. It's all a game designed to keep you in it and to keep you agreeing to it. Fear weakens willpower, making people more likely to accept oppressive solutions, right? Black magicians orchestrate traumatic events to lower collective consciousness and extract compliance, like 9/11. What happened? All of a sudden, people were consenting to the war on terror, to the Patriot Act, to mass surveillance, to the horrible treatment at airports and concerts and everywhere all of a sudden. And people were accepting it and are to this day defending it. Why? Because we need safety. There are dangerous people in the world. They want to attack our way of life. They hate our freedom. So the best thing we could do is let's take away our freedoms ourselves so they can't attack our freedom. Wait, that doesn't make sense, does it, huh? But still, intelligent people tell me they're so happy that the TSA is in place. They're so happy that you're basically getting sexually molested when you go into a concert to see an occult ritual play out. Governments use these crises to push draconian laws. Like I say, Patriot Act, COVID lockdowns. And the shock keeps people in fight or flight mode, making them too overwhelmed to resist. The reason why we need to right now comprehend this is because the next events are on the horizon. And it's going to get faster, bigger, more, which is a good sign because they know more and more people every single day are becoming wise to these things, are, sort of walking over the threshold of real understanding and are saying, fuck this, I'm not playing this game any longer. And so they need bigger events. They need more attention. They need more emotional charge. So we have to know this, that the bigger the alarm bells are, it actually means that we're more and more aware, and they need to sound bigger and bigger alarms, so we submit. So again, do not consent. It does not mean that you shouldn't be aware of things, but don't consent to the programming that is being sent your way. For example, masks were symbolically linked to submission and initiation rites in occult traditions. You can go back into the ancient times and you will see masks. They represent, taking away our humanness, our identity. We communicate with each other more non-verbally than verbally, so facial expressions matter greatly. What is happening in this area matters greatly. If we can't see that, we're dehumanized. So people who were wearing masks were submitting to the dehumanization, believing and hence consenting to the notion that this was going to keep them and everyone else safe when it did absolutely nothing other than dehumanizing people and making them submit. Social distancing and isolation mirror psychological torture techniques used to break prisoners. Classic. Go into any situation where information needs to be extracted of a group. The first thing they do is separate them, right? They keep them in isolation. Because in isolation, we have a social drive. We have the need for contact, for touch, for being with each other, seeing each other, feeling each other. When we don't have that, we deteriorate, most of us anyways. We're not aware of these things. And that's what happened during, the fake bullshit. Vaccination campaigns were presented as sacred duty, literally, right? Conditioning people to accept body sovereignty violations. You were told it's for the higher good. Everyone was told this is a necessity, and that when you do it, you're actually doing something sacred. That was occult on steroids and gave them even more energy, right? Every person that consented or gave permission to be violated, especially if they didn't want to, now they got the consent and the loosh, right? That was a double whammy for them. They got the consent and the loosh from the people, the negative energy. It's like for months on end, while people were suffering, good people were suffering and didn't know what was going on, these folks had an energy feast. They were just feasting behind the scenes. They were thriving. That's why the consciousness was lowered. And we know the measurements. We actually have the numbers. Consciousness fell at the fastest pace in recorded history, late 2019 into the early 2020, because of this effect, right? Now it has bounced back more than ever, which is a beautiful thing, which which tells us this everything coming to light and people remembering who they really are, regaining consciousness, literally has had a great positive effect on everything. What else? Black magic thrives on deception and inversion, turning good into evil and evil into good, right? Censorship is safety. These are the slogans. They're not saying it like that, but like I said before, the principle of the Patriot Act was, these people, the Al-Qaeda people, led by the guy in the cave, they hate our freedom. They want to attack our way of life. So the best thing we can do is change our way of life and restrict our freedom so they won't attack us anymore. Censorship is safety, restriction is safety, security. Forced medicine is public health. That's what we learned over the past 5 years. War is liberation. That's literally what these psychopaths, most of them unelected EU leaders, are saying on a daily basis in their own little words. And actually, Keir Starmer said it. I should have put that snippet in when he said, Europe has to play its role. Every time I see the little boy that mimics as a man, I just, I cringe. Knowing that he is a victim of the exact same manipulation that everyone else has gone through, only harder, right? Victimized much more, clearly severely traumatized as a child. And so he's playing out this role and was put there to do exactly that. Pop culture promotes degeneracy, violence, hypersexualization, substance abuse as empowerment. I can't tell you how many brainwashed women are celebrating, feminists, there's an oxymoron, are celebrating the hypersexualization and open abuse in rap and pop culture. They're celebrating this as a woman's liberation to be objectified and over-sexualized and abused and violated. And that is a celebration point because that means empowerment. Well, if the shoe fits, you got to be brain dead to believe that, right? And unfortunately, so many are. Satanic imagery is openly used in music videos, fashion, and award shows. I can't even tune into this. When I do research on this, I have to sort of really first make sure that I'm energetically very, very balanced. When I do research on this, I tend to look at it as sort of put some emotional distance between me and that. And then I look at that imagery and I just go, we do live in Twilight Zone, right? It is the Twilight Zone. It is as effed up as it could be. Occultists believe that if they reveal their plans, this is a big one. Once again, listen to how they're doing it. Listen to what they're saying. They're not hiding this. They're not meeting in secret and they're starting bombing campaigns. No. They're coming out for months on end and they're announcing that they need to arm up, and the European Union is creating a program for $840 billion in Rearm Europe. They're announcing it. They're putting it out there. Why? Because they need the people's consent. They need it. They can't just do it in secret and just play it out. It doesn't work like that. They need the agreement of the people. That is why there's $1 trillion machinery out there manipulating you to the best of their ability every single day, so that you, consciously or unconsciously, it does not matter one bit to them, agree, consent, and at least not resist. Once you resist or oppose, and people think, and isn't this a brilliant, brilliant move of the spiritual community that was infiltrated, that say, if you voice opposition, if you say no, you are persisting what you're resisting. So you get attacked, don't resist. A woman gets violated, don't say no, because what you resist will persist. Can you see, if you actually think about it with logic and context, that these things were brought into the spiritual community to keep you from resisting, to keep you from saying no, because unbeknownst to most people, as grand and as powerful as these forces appear to us, they are not powerful and grand. They are tiny, small, sorry excuses for beings, and they need for us to feel even smaller so we can send to them. When we say no, when we strongly stand in our conviction of no, fuck off, it doesn't work. I mean, you have to believe it with every fiber of your being, though, but when you put it to the test, it works every single time. Abusers are small. Tyrants are small. They're not big people. They're not powerful people. They're small people. Small minds, small egos. I mean, small minds, big egos. They're notoriously surprised if anyone stands up to them and does it with conviction, not as a show, but stands in the truth. It's over. Tyranny has never had a chance against the truth when the truth recognizes itself and presents itself as such. What are the examples of this when they tell you? Schwab says you will own nothing and you'll be happy. You will own nothing and you will be happy. And you will eat the bugs. And you will have a brain chip. And we will already know what you want, so you won't have to vote. Put it all out there. Then the other guy, Bill Gates, you know? I mean, this little man, little excuse for a man, cannot help himself. You know, it's like whenever he gets a microphone, I mean, he just giggles and he can't, you know, I know he knows. His handlers tell him, Bill, you know, be careful with how you word this. But he just can't help himself. You know, just we're going to shoot it in their arms and, you know, we're going to depopulate. I mean, he gets all giddy about it, right? He can't help himself. And then Elon, of course, the latest example, the Doge father, who has been warning against AI, and is equally giddy about developing it now and putting it into everybody because they can't help themselves. They have to let you know, and they're kind of excited to let you know, and they're kind of excited about their ability to let you know, and you still consent to it. And I'm not talking to you, but as a general principle. See, these folks get off on, I told them, like we told them. I mean, we literally told them, and they still cheering. So we're off the hook. And they are off the hook. People think that within the construct, within the karmic construct, when people believe and subscribe to the karmic construct, which you can also unsubscribe, you know, you can hit the unsubscribe button, believe it or not. But if you do, people believe that these people will get their karmic retribution, or to use it in more spiritual terms, they will receive what they give. But no. They're off the hook because they offered something, might have been bad, but you accepted it, or the people accepted it voluntarily. There is no karmic consequence for that because no one and nothing was violated in the process, believe it or not. See, this is how this game works, and they know it, and that's how they play it. And because we're so often either overestimating ourselves or underestimating the importance of realizing how this works really on all levels, that we don't pay enough attention. And this is what I've said for years. When you don't pay attention, when you don't know how the game works, you're going to play the game and you're not even going to know it. You're not going to know that you're part of the game. You're not going to know where you are consenting, where you are agreeing, where you are unwillingly giving your energy where you actually wouldn't want to if you knew the truth. How can you revoke consent and break free? Listen, this is literally about becoming sovereign. Recognize symbols and rituals. Awareness neutralizes their effect. When you become aware and you see that, you know, when the unseen becomes seen, when the hidden becomes known, it takes away its power unless you believe in it. Then, see, symbols have been charged over millennia with a certain kind of energy. the cross, the pentagram, and all the other symbols, the pyramid, they have been charged consciously with a certain type of energy. Now, to one person, that when they thoroughly believe and agree to that, that symbol can rule their life, rule their decisions, rule everything. To the other who does not believe in the symbol and its energetic charge and doesn't agree to it, it's just a piece of wood on the wall. Worse, the worst thing is to those who are unconscious about it, and then they subconsciously are subjected to that energy and even agree to it because they haven't made up their mind. They haven't made a clear choice. Life is all about choices. What you don't decide on is being decided for you by default. Reject passive participation. Avoid fear-based media, propaganda, and mass rituals. If you are going today, if you're still invested in the NFL or the NBA or the big concert circuit and the arena shows, I'm sorry to tell you, we will in time create all of this in an authentic form again. We will in time have beautiful, and of course these concerts do exist. I'm talking about the mainstream. The mainstream is completely to be ignored. Don't go there. There's no reason to go to any big concert or any big sports game, maybe for research purposes, if you will. But if you are invested energetically and emotionally, you are agreeing to what's happening there. I'm sorry to tell you, but all these influences are still owning this. Declare your non-consent. This is the most important thing. Verbally, mentally, and spiritually reject deceptive agreements. As a matter of fact, you can come up with your own prayer on this. And who you are praying to is not the God of this world, but you are actually co-creating with the prime creator of everything. And you dissolve any and all agreements that you're unaware of, that you made without full information, and that in any way, shape, or form bring harm to you now, in the past, or in the future. Basically, you imagine yourself having all these cords going from your body or your being into all directions, and you literally in your mind, you cut all those cords. You do it with gratitude. Don't do it in resentment. Do it with gratitude. Now you know better. Cut the cords and start fresh. And make sure that every decision that you make it consciously. You can pull out this plastic card that's in your wallet that people call your identification. And when you identify with it on an energetic level, when you believe that that's you, right here on that plastic card, that's you. It's not you. It's not you. It has nothing to do with you. That's their card. If you believe in this, and if that means something to you, and it has big emotions around it, well, then you are associating with it energetically. You're giving consent. If you're just a card-carrying member, or just a card-carrying human being, and cards in your wallet doesn't mean anything to you, and when you present it, it is not because you energetically identify with it. It is to maybe make something in your life, that moment, a little easier. Listen, it's all about the energy that you carry while you do these things, right? Passports, that's not you. Birth certificate, that's not you. ID, that's not you. Do you think when you transcend all of these dimensions and you meet in the space of infinity, you meet the creator, that he's gonna, or she's gonna, or it's gonna ID you? You really think you're gonna get ID'd? No, that's not happening. It means nothing to us. To us spiritual beings, means nothing. It is a worldly thing. And as a matter of fact, I believe that in the very near future, we will have this parallel little groups, communities, and even societies that know this and will not be a part of this at all anymore. Break the illusion, educate others to disrupt the spell of mass hypnosis. This is important. your entire day and the day of your children and your parents and your grandchildren and your siblings and everyone else is a continuation of choices and agreements and contracts. Now they don't see that, but it's true. Everything that you do, every time that you go somewhere and interact and do, it's an agreement and a contract. Now, when you become aware of it, you make completely different choices, and you are in a different energetic state while you make those choices. Control your energy, protect your thoughts and words, and focus from being harvested. People think that the most important thing is to send the government some document where you declare that you are now free and sovereign, or to cut up all the documents. And no, listen, these are all false paths because they rely on external actions. Most importantly, you have to internally realize that you are a sovereign being, fully, unconditionally sovereign. And from that inner knowing, you're making choices accordingly. That's how important this is. It does not matter when you have a conversation with a police officer that you educate him about or her about the entire legal fiction, and there might be a time and place for that, but it's not every time, and it might not do anything when you force this on people. However, what does something is when you are a sovereign being and you exude that, when you're truly free, when you feel absolutely in sync with your spirit, that's what you exude. So you lead by example. That's what people are attracted to, and that's what they then maybe want to experience as well. So this is it. But it is so important that we understand that whatever they throw at us next, the first thing is, before you fall for the emotional trap, oh my God, you just say, I don't consent to getting energetically involved in this. I don't consent to add my energy to this. And I don't consent to any reactions coming from this event. I'm sovereign over my own thoughts, over my own decisions, over my own actions. When you do that, now you can observe that without being attached to it. When you feel an attachment forming, ask yourself, am I really involved in this? Is this my life? Is this my family? Am I somehow connected to this? If not, step back. Remember, cut those cords. Be an observer, not a participant. When these next events, whatever they are, have very few participants, these events don't unfold. We have seen this in the past. Many campaigns and psyops did not work on the people. Why? Because the people didn't fall for the bullshit. It was swine flu, Ebola. How many times have they rolled that out? Didn't work, right? The war on terror was one that billions and trillions of dollars went into the PR campaign, but after a while, people just didn't buy that shit any longer. And lo and behold, terrorism all but disappeared, right? So there are many examples for the campaigns that don't work. And they, they just go to the next one. They just go to the next playbook and the next playbook and the next playbook, and fewer people that participate. And that's where this whole notion of 95% of the problems in the world are completely fabricated and invented to see if anybody wants to play. They're throwing it out there hardcore, and then they go, let's see how many people want to play. If we get enough people, we can play the game. It was like with your friends on the street. You remember when you were younger and, we're 10 kids on the street and somebody wanted to play a game and they were really passionate about it and they were telling you how great that game is. But like the others were like, nah, man, this is a boring game. I don't want to play. That game never happened. But then someone came up with a better game and everybody started playing. So what's a better game? Sovereignty, freedom, love, compassion, community, kindness, creation, creativity. All of these things are wonderful games in this construct that benefit us and everyone around us, and that we can play together in full consent and with love, absolutely no dark or ulterior motives. And that's what we can do every single day. So, once you once you realize this, and once this becomes a more common realization, all these big occult rituals and all these big events, you just look at them and then you just say, you're just sorry excuses for beings here doing this. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody cares. It's not working anymore. And that's when we really liberate ourselves from the bullshit. All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being with us. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon.
Listen, right now you could be only a few clicks away from experiencing something amazing, something that has changed thousands of lives all over the world. I'm talking about a high consciousness field similar to those at pilgrimage sites and sacred places. It's where people go to heal, to connect, and to become the best possible version of themselves. With FLFE, you can bring such a high consciousness field into your home right now. It's a spiritual quantum technology based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Better sleep, more energy, greater well-being, improved finances, electrosmog mitigation. These are only some of the things people on the FLFE service are experiencing. Try it now for 15 days completely free of charge, no credit card needed. Just click on a link down below to start your free, no strings attached FLFE trial right now.